What a pleasure to be here today. It's Valentine's Day. My wife's with me right back here, Karen Marie. It's a dream come true for her, Valentine's Day with 300 men and just her. So God bless it. So I'm going to try to put together a couple of thoughts for you today. It's Olympics and it's Valentine's. So let's see if we can't put a couple of thoughts together with you. And I've had the privilege of working with some Olympic hopefuls in my lifetime. What I'd love to talk about today is the mental toughness that it takes to be someone that can show up at the Olympics and do it, especially even the Olympic trials. And so the cool thing about this group is that we have the secret weapon. And I want to share that with you today, and that's called spiritual toughness. So I'm going to share some thoughts that I use with athletes, and if they're open and they're willing to go to this new place, this great place called spiritual toughness, then it can really transform their life and allow them to be fearless. So I want to share some thoughts with you today so that you might go back into your world in a way that you have a little better perspective about what you do, because we all live in a really difficult, hard, changing, adverse, interference-laden world, don't we? And that's no different. What we get to see for the athletes, it's no different, except we just get to see this microcosm on TV, and we get to see these stories unfold in front of us and watch how these people handle stress and handle the incredible interference that comes along with the Olympics. So when I first sit down with an athlete that's a high-level elite athlete, I'll ask him this. Tell me this picture. Give me a picture. Describe this for me. What's the trophy you want to hold someday? And they can talk about, well, I want to be an Olympian, or I want to be on the Olympic team. And it's a nice picture, being on the podium, or, for some it's just making a team or winning a PGA event or whatever. The picture that they come up with is pretty much a smiling face holding a trophy. And then I ask them this question. I say, listen, now, I want a second picture, and this is going to be the most important picture we talk about today. I want you to think about 20 minutes before the trophy celebration. Tell me what that's going to look like. You see, this is not a place of comfort. It's not a place of big smiles. This is a place where we just saw the Super Bowl with, a minute to go. This is, coming down the end in the, in the Olympics in a skate, and you got, one more quad or triple to do, and if you fall, you lose. If you make it, you win. These kind of things. This 20 minutes before the trophy celebration, these moments are huge and important for us because they are the defining moments of our life as competitors. And I really believe this. I believe there's micro 20 minutes before the trophy celebration moments too. Each day, each week, each month, and in your life. So the idea of the 20 minutes before the trophy celebration are really defining moments where we have to overcome something, overcome adversity, interference, or whatever to get to that trophy. And you never can hold a trophy unless you go through the 20 minutes before the trophy celebration. I worked for the San Antonio Spurs for 2 of the World Championships, and I remember one of them. We're 6 points down with 2 minutes to go. And it's the end. Pop calls the timeout. It's the last timeout. Our guys, blood, sweat, and tears. They've left it all on the court. It doesn't look really good at this moment. And he's got 2 minutes to go in the game, and he's got a chance to say something. I wonder what he's going to say to these guys. And they're spent. The best guys are out there. They're doing it all. But it is not a calm, quiet, easy place. And it was really cool what he said. He said, guys, the process. That's what we're about, the process. We don't have to do anything special here. None of you guys need to be superstars and take this upon yourself. We're a team. We're going to stick with the process. They got the pressure because at this moment they had everything to lose and nothing to gain. We win by 6. We turned it around. And there was a 12-point swing in the last 2 minutes of the game. I've seen it. I've been there. I've been in those spaces, in those places where I've had tour players coming down with one hole to go or in a sudden death for Steve Lowry. And I've watched what they've thought, and I've watched how they've come out, and it's been a pleasure and a privilege to be a part of that. So these 20 minutes before the trophy celebration moments in our life are really big. And this is the information that I get to share with people, and I want to share some thoughts with you today. See, this thing called mental toughness is not something you're born with. It's not some DNA characteristic that comes in you when you're born. It comes from choices in life. It comes from experiences. It comes from successes and failures. It comes from watching and observing others and being mentored. It basically boils down to some choices that we make in our life. And the first choice I want to talk to you about today is simply this, and that is to embrace the pressure. You see, if you want to go through the 20 minutes before the trophy celebration, which is a place of intense pressure, then we need to be preparing for it instead of running from it. And there's all these stress reduction, all these snowflake places for kids on college campuses when the pressure's too much to go play with Play-Doh and stuff like that. I don't think any of us in here actually got to do that. But the idea of embracing the pressure is really important. In fact, pressure becomes our greatest competitive ally. I had a pole vaulter at the University of Kansas that wanted to be in the Olympics. His name was Scott Huffman, an amazing young man, wonderful, beautiful guy. He came into me once, we were meeting, and he says, I have so much pressure for this meet coming up. I don't even know if I can eat breakfast. We're having breakfast together. And I said, well, tell me about it. He says, well, it's a national outdoor championship, and I've been in 15 national championships, and this is 2 years before the Olympics, so we're getting ready for this. And he said, I've never finished the top 10, I'm ranked 2 in America, and it's my nemesis meet. And I don't know if you have like a nemesis whatever in your life, but this was his nemesis. This was the place that he had the toughest time. He said he no-heighted 6 times, like I said. And so I said, okay, let's just back up. So where do you want to go? And he says, I want to be an Olympian. I got 2 years to get ready for that. Okay. I said, about 8 weeks in front of the Olympics, there's this little meet called the Olympic Trials, where once every 4 years on a track, you don't get to choose against people you don't get to choose against. In weather conditions, you don't get to choose. In a physical body, you don't really have complete control over. In that moment, you get a chance to jump. And if you happen to make it that day, you become an Olympian. Otherwise, it's 4 more years. And he didn't have 4 more years. I said, is there going to be any pressure there? And he goes, oh, yeah. And I said, oh, and if you get through that, USA is reporting that 4 billion, that's with a B, people will be watching the Olympics. You ever jumped in front of 4 billion before? Okay, only a quarter of them like the vault. So how about 1 billion? You ever jumped in front of 1 billion before? And so I got his attention there, and I said, listen, so what you need to understand is maybe the greatest gift you have outside your faith in God and your wife at this moment is this meet coming up, because it's a place you put your foot on the line and you feel more heat than any other place in the world. And it's that moment, it's that place that if you succeed and can handle that, then you're moving up the ladder one more rung towards this thing called the Olympic Trials and the Olympics. Change your attention to seeing this as a gift instead of something you want to push away. Embrace, not push. And then I gave him this great quote. You guys will love this. It came out of an obscure little golf magazine many, many years ago. The guy was 43 years old, this article was about. He stepped out of the pro shop down in Florida, and he made it on the PGA Tour at the age of 43. 3,000 people entered, and 25 back then got a card, and he was one of those guys. So the article is basically the oldest PGA Tour rookie of all time. They're saying, how did you do that? You're competing against the guys on the minis in the college that get to play every day, and you go out there and you've been working with Mrs. Smith's wedge and cleaning carts, and you went out and made it. How'd you do it? And he said, basically the deal was like, what's your deal? And he said, well, I'll tell you what my deal is. He said, I like to put my foot on the line where I like to put myself in a position where I feel like I'm choking my guts out so I can see how good I could be. He said, you see other people running from that all the time. He said, my whole purpose in life is to put my foot on the line every day and feel the heat, because where I intend to go is a place of fire. Oh, I said, hey, Scott, you think like that? I said, your competitors are thinking like that. But see, it's a choice in how we think. I said, Scott, you need to go over and flip that light switch from off to on. And some of you probably read these, best-selling books that said it takes 21 days to break a habit or something like that. Well, if I ask you to think about a lemon, and I say, oh, no, never mind, think about an orange, about how long did it take to change your thought process from a lemon to an orange? It takes a moment. It's the same thing of embracing the pressure. You either say, this is a gift, and I'm going to take these feelings, these butterflies. Nicholas says you always have them, just make sure they're flying in formation. You take these butterflies, the thing you have, and you go out there with them, but you embrace it. You don't push it away. You see it as a gift. I said, Scott, you got to go embrace the pressure. So he goes to the meet. You get 3 attempts and you're out if you miss. And so he missed the first 2. It's the lowest height. So he's sitting there. He said, I got the pole in my hand. I'm about to go down there and fail in front of all these people again. My wife's there. My coach is there. Everybody's there. And I just feel like an emotional wreck. And then he said, I don't remember that guy's name, but at that moment I recalled finally what you told me to do. He said, I remember that quote. I like to put myself in a position where I feel like I'm choking my guts out so I can see how good I can be. He said, you know what? If that's true, I'm about to jump 19 feet. Now, the bar was at 16, so he didn't have to jump 19, but he said, because I never felt this much pressure in my life. And so he goes down and he plants that pole in a box and he clears the bar by 3 feet and he makes it. He gets out, he puts his hands on his knees and thanks God and says that was the greatest single vault of his life, 16.6 or something like that. But he knew something. Something switched inside. He saw it as a gift. He saw it as something that was going to help instead of hinder. And he went on that night, didn't miss another attempt, and won the National Outdoor Championship going away. 1 year later, we're at having breakfast again 1 week before the National Outdoor Championship, and I'd say, how you doing? He said, man, I'm embracing the pressure. It's been the greatest year of my life. I got 1 year to the Olympics. I'm going to the National Outdoor Championship next week in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I can't wait. He jumped 19.7 and a quarter. He broke the American record by a decade. I mean, inches, you know, and I mean, that was just incredible. Amazing vault, you know, go down in the history for years and years. A couple months later, now we're moving towards the Olympics. You know, everything's looking really good. He pulls a muscle so bad as he's attempting a vault that he splinters his pelvic bone. Now, this is a deep, horrible injury. Your pelvic bone just splinters like that. And they can't do surgery because there's too much muscle to get down into there. So they have to let it just kind of settle back and solder itself. So you're in a full body cast for a while. You can't laugh, cough, sneeze, you know, talk, nothing. I mean, move, every movement, you know, you feel this. And so he was in a body cast for a while, and then he kind of got out. Now he's in a full leg cast. He's walking around at Christmas time, and now it's the Olympic year. You know, he gets out, finally gets out of that cast. He starts jogging a little bit in February and March. He gets on a short pole in April and starts jumping like 10 feet. In May, he's able to get on a longer pole and really attempt that, and then here come the Olympic trials. So have you ever been in a situation like that where you go, why me, why now? We say you don't get to pick the time. You don't know when these 20 minutes before the trophy celebration moments are coming. For him, it was now. So he goes to the Olympic trials, and on the way into the stadium, they put they make a park in a certain place, and then they take the athletes and put them on buses and head to their event. His bus breaks down. He's there 30 minutes late. The vault director says, we're sorry. I know you need some more run-throughs or whatever. You got 2 and we're starting on time. And so it begins, and he misses his first 2 attempts. Why me, why now, you know? But he said, I remembered that quote again, and I just believed in it. And he fought over the bar, and he made it. And he went over the next one. And then he had a little trouble on the next one, but he got over on his 3rd attempt, and then he made the next one, and he made the Olympic team that day. And not having jumped for like 9 months competitively. And if he was standing in front of you today, he would just say, it was a simple switch that I made in my mind to embrace the pressure. There's a book in the Bible called James. It's a small book. He was one of the disciples. I think, and the theologians here can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he's the same James that became the leader of the Jerusalem church. But James had something to say. Now, Paul wrote 13 of these books, and Paul was always into kind of slowly like introducing, God bless you, and these ladies and this guy and Timothy, and say hello to these people. And then he would get into his message. And James had something to say. The Holy Spirit was all over him. He said, say it. You know, it's like, all right, I'm the first sentence. I got to get this out. There's no introductions, nothing. I'm saying this, and if lightning strikes me, I'm writing the rest of the book. At least this is out. And this is what he had to say. The Holy Spirit was heavy on him to say this. The first thing, James 1:1, count it pure joy when you face trials of all kinds. Because trials lead to perseverance, and perseverance must run its course before a man is mature and complete. See, this is God's spiritual toughness. This is a formula from the God of the universe that created us for great purposes down here. Jesus said, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. James said, listen, count it pure joy, not when you have a great luncheon like this, or, a wonderful date, or make a hole-in-one at Pine Valley, or anything like that. Count it pure joy when you face trials. So when you read it backwards, you can understand what he was really saying, because none of us want to end our life immature and incomplete. Anybody in here? You want to be mature and complete. God understands that. If we want to be mature and complete, we got to go through perseverance. And the only way to go through perseverance is has trials. Trials make us mature and complete. That's the joy. Not that they feel good, and not that they are all like good. In terms of like a broken arm doesn't feel good, does it? But the trials lead to something. A great gift. Maturity and completeness. So that we might be able then to be a great use in this rescue mission that God has for us as we reach out to the next generation, or those older that never got it, or the people around us in our sphere, and be able to say, listen to this. It's going to be okay. As God said he'd never leave nor forsake you, he's going into this stuff with you. But we do live in a fallen world and things happen. And God says, I'll be with you through that, and I've got a better place for you. Spiritual toughness then is that grasping hold of what James said, and Scott was just living that out. The second choice we got to make, I call it painting a masterpiece. I might have talked about this a little bit the last time I was here, but creating a masterpiece in front of you of what you want to have happen. There was a young lady back in the early 2000s that was a figure skater. She was 16. She was pretty much a no-name. Her name was Sarah Hughes. The big name was Michelle Kwan. So they're in the Olympics just like it's going on right now. And so Michelle had won 2 or 3 world championships and had a silver medal in the Olympics. This was her final Olympics, and she was supposed to win, and her short skate was awesome and, you know, off the charts. And so there's 6 warming up in the last group, and there's 5 that have mathematical chances, and really 2 or 3 that could do something if Michelle fell or something like that. But Sarah was 5th. There's no way she's going to do it. The first girl went out and did okay, but she was a no factor. And then Sarah Hughes comes out. So they always kind of, you know, they go out there, and she just had this beautiful smile on her face, and she's just smiling like this and looking at the camera. You can look this up on Google. I mean, just watch this. This if you want the hair on the back of your head to stand up. And she goes out there, and you can see her carotid artery, and it's going like boom, boom. You know, it's not like a butterfly. I mean, she's just happy. She's happy. And it starts, boom, and she takes off, and in the first 10, 15, 20 seconds, she has 2 she does a back-to-back triple. They go, oh my gosh, no one's ever done that. And then she does another one. And in the context of her skate, she did 4 triples. No one's ever done that. She's 16. People don't know who she is. And the fans are going crazy and screaming. And when it's over, she just, you know, does this thing. And it's like the greatest smile I've ever seen on an athlete. And people probably had these things for Michelle, started throwing them out there on the, I mean, it was like, you know, filling up the whole ice place. And they're running around trying to pick them up. But the people knew they had just seen genius in action. We all love the underdog. And she was happy, and she was relaxed, and she had a blast. And now there's 4 girls left. And each of those 4 girls fell. And then Michelle, especially, as she was going around, she fell. But when the camera got on her, it was like boom, 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 boom. I mean, you could see the tension in her jaw as she went out there to start her dance. And she did fall a couple of times. But she still could have won, except that Sarah Hughes' record-breaking skate won by just a few points. Sarah Hughes ends up winning the gold medal, and they interview her afterwards and say, what were you thinking? And she said something so beautiful. And take this home. She said, when I was a little girl, I dreamed that one day I would get to dance for the world. And you know what? Today, I got to dance for the world. Wow. That's what she was thinking. I've got a gift to give to these people. This is what I've always wanted to do. Just share my gift, just to dance for the world. What do you think Michelle was thinking? This is my last opportunity. I haven't won a gold. I'm supposed to win. This girl has just blown it away. What if I lose? What will my career be? I can't make a big mistake. You see the consequences of thinking differently. And Sarah Hughes had dreamed, painted the masterpiece. One day, I get to dance for the world. She created a masterpiece. There was a pilot, his name was Sully. He took off from an airport in New York, I think it was LaGuardia, and he's flying over Manhattan about 2,000 feet, and he hits a bunch of ducks. Poor ducks, right? No. Blew out both engines of the plane. That's an issue because the plane's going, and you're in the plane. That's not a good sound. I've done that before. It's quiet. And there's a bunch of metal hanging in the air over New York City. This is not a cornfield. There's not like a place down there. He's got 20 seconds to determine where he's going to do with the plane. Can I get it around without losing airspeed and get back to that runway? Or is there another runway in the area that I can turn and get down to quickly? And the answer in 20 seconds was no. Third option, fourth option, whatever, land in Manhattan. Like what street? 42nd Street? You know, which one do you want to wipe out? Might as well go ahead and take out the bad one, you know? I could say stuff, but anyway, we'll move right on. So he sees the Hudson River, and he says, that's where we're going. So there's some bridges here, you know, you got to land between these bridges. You got to take it down. You got the glide scope just right. And then will it sink or, you know, float? He lets all the gas out so the wings are going to have air in them. And he hits the water and everything is like everybody's in shock, but they're alive. So they don't open the front. They don't open the back. They open the doors over the wings so the thing doesn't sink. They all get out and they're all saved, 158, I think, of them. You talk about a moment in time of painting a masterpiece, of getting this thing down in the middle in the heat. Again, they interviewed him. What did he say? He said, every moment of my life was preparation for that moment. And all I would think of was where I was going to land it and how I was going to get it there. What's the other option? Everybody's going to die. There's, poor me. We might as well, try to get to a runway and run into a building. I mean, what did he do? He painted a masterpiece. And this has come home close to us because my wife was at the grocery store not too long ago near us, and a young lady behind her had 3 kids in tow, and she starts up a conversation with them like she does. She's amazing. So they become close friends, like in the line there. Have you done that, guys? You ever become close friends with another guy in a grocery line? So they go outside, and there's a little park there, and so they continue their conversation, and I mean, they're best friends in a moment. And so this young lady says, I got a book I want to give you next time I come. And so they meet again, and she hands her the book, and the name of the book, it's just now being published, it's called Sink or Swim. And she tells my wife, I was on that plane. She was glad that her pilot painted a masterpiece. The third choice we've got to make is to trust our talent. In the middle of competition, in the middle of the 20 minutes before the trophy celebration, is not a time to begin to doubt. It's not a time to say, well, the odds are against me. It's not time to say, well, I 3-putted the last 2 greens, so why should I think I can make this one? We base so much on these pre-existing statistics or whatever our world is crazy about, instead of trusting that thing that we've been preparing for and giving ourselves the best chance by embracing the pressure and painting the masterpiece and going into this thing with trust. So in 1995, I was invited to work with the women's volleyball team at Nebraska. And their coach had a 21-year mission to bring in a national championship to that state, to that school. And all of his coaching friends said, you can't do it in that icebox. You got to go to California. You got to get out of there. But he believed it would happen. And this year they were ranked number 1. So he invited me up there to work with them and share some, information like this with them. And it was a great, amazing time. And they go 34-1 with 1 match to go against the University of Texas. Sorry, Dave, where are you? And anyway, I get a phone call. It's about 24 hours before the match. And what happens to us that are somewhat perfectionistic in here is that there's time between now and that trophy. This is the 20 minutes before the trophy celebration. That's a metaphor. Can it be extended? And so he called and he said, I've got 4 girls on the court. He said, I just don't think we're ready. I'm going, that's not a good sound. They're 34-1. He said, I love this man. And he's just, he felt like he had a sounding board. We were friends by this time. And he was just being transparent and knew that I wouldn't, judge him for it. But there was time. There was time before that trophy. And so he said, listen, I don't think we're ready. He said, I got 4 girls on the court that will be All-Americans, that are All-Americans this year. I got another girl that will be next year. Out of 6 girls, he got 5 All-Americans. He could put a cat out there for the 6th girl and won this thing. But then he said, and then I have Kate. Not a cat, but I have Kate. And he says, I love Kate. But Kate still jumps off the wrong foot, David. I mean, she's the most unorthodox player I've ever had. She was, a right brain artist. And you guys in here like this, we don't know what to do with them. But they're really good performers. We leave them alone. But we're trying to put them in a box with everybody else. But she just doesn't seem to get it. And I think Texas is going to come out, or she's an outside hitter and exploit her. I think we're going to lose because of her. So I'm thinking about putting another girl in. She's a freshman, never started in her life. Doesn't even actually play that position. But I'm thinking she might do okay. Red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. And I'm going, this is a really smart coach. But he's overthinking, you know. I mean, we're trying to fix something. He's trying to fix something he thought that he could fix in those last few minutes instead of saying the hay's in the barn, let's just trust what we got and then move people in and out as we need them. I said, you know, I said, Coach, I think that young lady you want to put in there might be able to do well. I mean, she's really a gifted athlete. But I think game day is about trust, not anything else. And so here's what I'm really worried about, what the other 5 girls are going to think when they get out there and you change the lineup. I think you'd be sowing doubt instead of trust. The other option you might have is to go out there tomorrow, look Kate in the eye and say, Kate, I trust you. I believe in you. All these things we talked about this year, just tell her, hey, just play, enjoy yourself. Free her up. Give her confidence. Use the word trust with her. And then tell Christy, Melissa, and Lisa the same thing. Build them. Fill them with trust. He said, I'll think about it. He goes out the next day, looks Kate in the eye and says, Kate, I trust you. She hadn't heard a lot of this from her coach before. He said, I believe in you. You're exactly who we need on the court today. Just, you know what today's about, Kate? It's what you worked so hard for. Just play the game. Enjoy it. I trust you. I believe in you. Well, her demeanor changed. Her posture changed. Her eyes were a little moist when he left, and he ran around and said the same thing to the other young lady. So they're playing Texas. She's an outside hitter. She's averaged 1.4 kills, spikes, we might say, per game, about 4 or 5 per match. So the national championship match begins, and Kate has 25 kills. She set an NCAA record that still stands today for the most kills in a playoff game. She was named MVP of the match. She was named all-tournament team. The girl he was going to take out. Bedlam breaks loose down there on the court, and the sea of red, you know, the fire ants from Nebraska running around down there. And its celebration is crazy. And she, in the midst of all that, eventually just kind of sits on the bench and puts a towel over her head and just is weeping with joy that somehow that happened. And Coach went over and he knelt down right in front of her, and he put his hand under her chin and raised it and looked her in the eye and says, Kate, you were special today. Celebration's going around, but they're just leaving them alone. You were special today, Kate. What was the difference? Tell me, Kate, what was the difference? And she stopped crying just long enough and looked Coach in the eye and said, hey, Coach, it's the first time you trusted me. First time you trusted me. Oh, my goodness gracious. Terry tells me this story. He says, I was just like hit with a boulder and a flood of emotion because I realized that a word that came out of my mouth changed the destiny of this young lady. And even maybe more so, other words that had come out of my mouth were holding her back. We understand that the words we speak give life, take life, give trust, give doubt. And both of them understood that day that each morning we wake up, we look in the mirror, and even more important, psychologists say the most intimate and influential messages we ever receive in our life come from what we say to ourselves, not what others say. And the question is, today in this place, can I trust myself? Well, I got a couple of spiritual toughness message, what I think is more than trusting myself is this. Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through me? No, through Christ, who strengthens me. Why can I do all things? Because I get my strength from someone, something else, that then allows me to be fearless. And then the Proverbs verse is great. Proverbs 3:5 says this, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He'll make your path straight. Wow, how about that? That's great stuff. I forgot about the verse for Paint the Masterpiece. This is one of my favorites of all time. This is in 2 Kings chapter 6. And it was Elisha was in the camp, and the Israelites were surrounded by the enemies. They often found themselves surrounded by the enemies that want to wipe them off the face of the earth. Has anything ever changed? So there they were in a valley, and there was like a myriad of enemy coming around them. I mean, just, like me 1 against 1,000. I mean, there was like no chance. And Elisha's servant was getting a little nervous about this deal. And he told Elisha, he said, look at the enemy. And Elisha said, God, give my servant eyes to see the truth. And the servant's eyes were opened, and he saw the chariots of fire of God surrounding the enemy all over the mountainside. Because in the context of living with God and allowing God to create the masterpiece instead of us, that masterpiece was given, paint the masterpiece. He was able to see how they were going to succeed because the God of the universe showed him the truth. Living on that plane is where I want to live. I know that's where you guys want to live too. That was back to painting the masterpiece. Embrace the pressure, paint the masterpiece, trust. These are the mental toughness things, but with Scripture, they are the spiritual toughness principles that God gives us. I believe that God in Philippians gave us an entire psychology book that rivals all of Freud's. You could just stack all of the stack of all the psychology books in here, and in 3 verses, Philippians has the greatest, most powerful book of psychology ever written for us as humans. And it's in 3 verses. God is wise, He's efficient, and it's amazing, and this will transform our lives. Philippians 4:6-7 says, be anxious for nothing. See, everything the enemy does against us, and we're in a battle against good and evil. Remember, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. I want to stay about a step behind Jesus, hanging onto His cloak with one hand, letting go of everything else, not getting in front of Him, but going along for the adventure with Him in front of me. I think that's a good place to be for a great adventure, and it's a safe place to be. But if you're not behind Him, and you don't hang on to Him, and you grab a hold of everything else, you might think you're having an adventure, but it's always unfulfilling. The great adventure is with Him. So anyway, Philippians says, be anxious for nothing, but through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving in your heart. Something my wife and I have done this week is just starting our days and moments, and oftentimes she reminds me, let's just be thankful right now, because the enemy's number one ploy is always fear. You can call it anxiety, you can call it whatever. You start peeling back jealousy, envy, anger, whatever we might fight with as men. You peel it back, and in there, underneath, in the middle of the onion seed, is the enemy's number one ploy, fear. Be anxious, be not afraid. Be anxious for nothing, but through prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. That's the beginning of this thing called the Great Exchange. Because God stands there, the God of the universe, the personal God with each one of us. How He does that, I don't know, but His hand's always out. He doesn't grab you. He just says, here, I've got something if you'll receive it. But you got to receive it. And in His hand, He's got something. He said, I want to make an exchange with you. Give me garbage, I'll give you treasure. That's our God. I like treasure. I hate garbage. Be anxious for nothing, but through prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God. God, take this fear, take this anxiety right now, and He's just overjoyed. Because the second part of that says, and then the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will rule in your mind and your heart. Wow, that's the great exchange. Guys, I got peace. You're in the midst of an Olympic trial, an Olympic moment, an Olympic whatever it might be in your world, and you're anxious and they're fearful about it. Listen, I've got the great exchange right here. I've got some peace in my hand. And I tell you, when an athlete is fearless, full of peace, watch out. When we're full of fear, things change and destroy us in our decision making and our thoughts. God says, and I'll give you peace, which surpasses what? All understanding. So we're not going to have a book written about peace that we can understand. It surpasses all understanding. So as good as I could explain it, it surpasses that. Garbage for treasure. And then this. And then it says, because we leave this verse out a lot, and I'm paraphrasing here. And it says, now go and think about these things. Whatever is good, whatever is right, whatever is noble, whatever is excellent, think on these things. Well, there you go. Give up the garbage, get some treasure, and then instead of getting the garbage back, let's go think on some things that God wants us to think on. Take your attention and put on some things He wants us to think on so that we're able in life to what? Perform to the highest capabilities. And this is the last part. I'm throwing Valentine's in here. So that's my Olympic thing for you right there. I love that, though. I mean, that should just make Philippians 4:6-8 just pop for you. That to me, I love that. Just when you read it, just remember that the great exchange. Let's go back to this story of Kate. So the game that got them into the final match where they annihilated Texas, sorry, David, the game before that was another team. And so what happened is a momentum swing took place. It was Penn State. And they played the 15 points back then. It was a final game. This was it. And the game was tied 7-7. And the next thing they knew, it was 13-7 and they're down. 2 points, it's over. It's done. And Penn State had the serve. So this is not looking good. So Terry calls timeout. Earlier in the year, I asked him this question, and this is my Valentine's message, and this is us with our wives and our daughters and our mothers and our employees. I said, I got to ask you a question. You know, we were just sitting in his office one day, and I said, you may think I'm crazy, but I'm going to ask you a question because I don't see this very, very often, the right answer in sport, and I just want to know where you're coming from because I know you want to be special and different than anyone that's ever coached. So let me just ask you this. Do you coach out of conditional love or unconditional love? In other words, to the people, the young ladies that work for you, is their emotion completely wrapped up in your actions, words, and beliefs that the only thing that they're worth, the only time they're worthy is when they perform well, and all of your emotions and actions and words are really about that condition? You play well, you practice well, you do what I say, I love you. Or is it something like this? When the parents give the greatest gift they have to your tutelage, do you understand that gift? And when they come to you, do you let them know, no matter what happens here, you get to understand this. First and foremost, you're part of this family and I love you. Now, you need to understand this. I'm going to push you. I'm going to press you. I'm going to encourage you. I'm going to inspire you. I'm going to do everything I can to make you better, but you will never, ever know anything but that in the end, I love you. I want the best for you. I said, Coach, conditional or unconditional? What's the way you coach? And he said, I got to think about that overnight. I know what I want to say, but I need to think about that overnight. I think all of us as leaders should think about that. And I think all of us as husbands and dads need to think about this. So the Penn State game, we're down by 6. They have the ball and 2 points to go and it's over, and they won't get to the finals. And coach calls timeout. The momentum's against them. They're just getting blown away. It's like craziness. The stands are going crazy for Penn State. And so coach says he calls timeout, and the girls are coming. He says, Dave, I had no idea what I was going to say. I didn't. As a coach, I was going, I don't know what to say. This is not looking good. So they all came around their coach, and they looked at him, and they're all just huffing and puffing, and they're scared to death. They're afraid, they're losing this thing. It's slipping out of their hand. And he says, Dave, I don't know where it came from. But it just bubbled up, and it came out. And all I could do was look at them and say, hey, listen to me. No matter if you win or lose, you need to know something. And he just kept looking at him and got quiet for a second. He said, you need to know this. I love each of you very, very much. And nothing that's going to happen on that court will change that. He turned and sat down. There's still time to go. These girls look at each other and they go, did he just say that? They huddled up and they changed their emotions and their posture. And they went out and they got the serve back. And they scored 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, tied now, 14, 15, boom, over. And it was like Penn State did not know what happened. And when I went to that awards banquet, every one of those young ladies got to get up and say something. And every single one of them started by saying, our season changed on a dime. At the end, near the end, when Coach simply said, no matter what happens, I want you to know that I love you very, very much. That was an completely unconditional love response that he was thinking about all year long. That's the guy he wanted to be. I think that's a good Valentine's thing for us to take home, whatever you're going to do with your wife, spouse, daughters, mothers, whatever today. It's just love them unconditionally. Jesus said, love your wives as Jesus loved the church, even to the point where he'd lay down his life for the church. That's our job, men. And I'll end with this. We've heard this thing, growing up, but wow, it just touched me today. Love is patient and love is kind, and it does not envy, and it does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. And it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered, and it keeps no record of wrongs. And love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. And it always protects, and it always trusts, it always hopes, and it always perseveres. There's that word again. And love never fails. Amen? God bless you guys on this Valentine's Day, and thanks for allowing me to be here. David, especially you. Thank you.
David, thank you. That's such a blessing to us. Well, we're called Toolbox for a number of reasons. One is that we try to provide resources for growth. So we have a resource table over there, 9 different books, 9 different authors, and we're very careful in terms of what we select. So we're trying to get you the best books out there. We encourage you to take advantage of that. Let me pray for us, and then we'll be gone. As David was talking about this amazing commodity called unconditional love, I was just struck, as I hope you were, with the reality that you just can't give away what you've never experienced. And it may be that you're here and you like what you heard and agree with it, but until you know what it is to be drunk on the love of God, it's going to be hard to give anything away. And the great news is that his message to you is exactly what the coach's was to those girls. And that is, I love you just the way you are. My love is not going anywhere. But you have to let me in. You have to take hold of it. And if you're not absolutely certain that when this life is over, you will spend eternity in a place the Bible describes as without sorrow or tears, former things are passed away, then the most important thing you could do with today's message is not to go out and try and be a better person. The most important thing you could do is simply humble yourself and receive the gift that God's wanting to give to you appropriately on Valentine's Day. And it's simply this. 2,000 years ago, he sent his son to die on a cross, that the blood on that cross would be the full and the final payment for your sin, for my sin, for the sins of the whole world. But one has to do more than look at the cross and appreciate the cross. Jesus says this, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him and he with me. And if you're not absolutely certain that you have made that decision, that you've received that free gift, I invite you to pray this prayer along with me. Lord Jesus, I realize that I haven't been the man I could have been or should have been. But how I thank you today that you died for all my sins. And ever so gratefully, I now ask you to come live inside of me as you promised. Make me the man I cannot be on my own. I love you, Jesus. Amen. See you guys next month.